From the golden classics to the modern masterpieces, we're watching them all so you don't have to. One list, infinite worlds. Grab your snacks and gear up. It's time to cross another one off the list. Your weekly podcast. This is the Anime Bucket Quest podcast. Welcome and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Baki, for that wonderful intro. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Anime Bucket Quest. I'm your host, the fonchize. Today, we aren't just reviewing anime, we are dissecting a cultural anomaly. We're talking about the series that single handedly revived the Japanese box office, sold over 150 million manga copies, and made water breathing a household item term. It is the modern gold standard for shonen anime. Today, we go deep into Demon Slayer. Produced by the visual wizards at Unfootable, Demon Slayer is set in the Taisho era, a fascinating time in Japan where traditional swords and kimonos clash with modern steam trains and electricity. We follow Tanjiro Kamado, the kindest boy in anime history, whose life is destroyed when a demon slaughters his family. His sister Nezuko survives but becomes a demon. Instead of killing her, Tanjiro packs her into a wooden box and sets off on a journey to turn her back into a human. It's a story of tragedy, yes, but more importantly, it's a story about the unbreakable bond between siblings and the journey they partake in. Let's talk about the unfootable tax. This studio does not know how to make a bad looking frame. Finding feature here is the visualization of breathing styles. In the manga, these were just sword forms. In the anime, there are literal elemental paintings come to life. It's kind of like those have you ever seen the Kurosawa paintings, like the wood block paintings? It's like the heavy, like kind of like a 2D-esque kind of, the thick, broad outlines makes it really colorful. And it kind of gives like a different meaning to how it shows. Because like I said, I read the manga and watching it visually, there is a big difference. So one of the things I saw was I gotta talk about, we have to talk about episode 19. If you know, you know. The Hinokami Kagura sequence, the music swells, the animation switches to a stunning blend of 3D camera work and a 2D traditional art. And the emotional payoff is huge. It is widely cited as the moment that turned casual viewers into diehard fans. The vibe, the show bounces horror. These demons are generally terrifying and eat people with intense slapstick comedy. One minute you're crying over a tragic backstory. The next minute, Zenitsu is screaming because a sparrow looked at him funny. It's a roller coaster. It's like those moments, right? Yeah. But it kind of like, what I like about the anime itself is, and the manga doesn't, it gives a little backstory to these demons, but the anime tries to give more to the backstory. Because at first you're like, oh, these demons have to be destroyed. But you realize, for the fact that, sometimes it wasn't their choice, or the demon, it was somebody that was, it could have been a criminal, it could have been somebody that was like, ostracized by people and he had nowhere else to go. It's all like that desperation to survive. At the same time, you kind of feel for the demons, but at the same time, it's like you want to root for Tanjiro. But Tanjiro is like the nicest guy in anime. It's like he gets angry, but he doesn't show it. Like, even though he's a demon slayer, when he slays the demons, it's like when I remember the one scene when he's taking out the spider mommy, and pretty much when he cuts her head off, she sees him and she's like, oh, those are not eyes of, I'm taking you out, those are eyes of compassion, those are eyes of sadness. Like, he feels for them because he probably sees, like, maybe they weren't made demons by choice, but at the same time in his mind, he's part of demon circle, he has to follow his mission. His whole goal is to find a way to cure his sister, and it's like, he doesn't display like that cold heartedness, versus, like guys like Inosuke who just wants to fight. And Zenitsu, even though he's like cowardly. He's kind of like comedic relief, but he's one of those dark horses that he surprises you. He's actually skilled when he's like sleepwalking or sleep fighting. But it's things like that that kind of what defines this anime compared to other ones I've seen in the past. Which brings us to my next point, the breakout character. While Nezuko is the mascot, and of course, my favorite character is the butterfly Hashira, the insect Hashira. She's my favorite one. But honestly, when it comes to this anime in general, is the scene stealer is Inosuke Hachibara. This man was raised by boars. He wears a hollow board head mask, runs around shirtless, and has no concept of sight because you gotta understand. You learn later on that, his his mom, had to, his family was getting attacked by demons. Spoiler alert. So his mom had to give him up so he doesn't get, infected by a demon. He ends up getting raised in the wild. So he has like he can't read. He has misconceptions of how to act in society. It kind of that's why it kind of make he's the most loud and flamboyant character of this series. So it's like he's the one that jumps in and he's like, you got Tanjiro, which is kind of like the straight man. You got Zenitsu as the comedic relief, but you got the hothead, which is Inosuke. It's kind of like Ninja Turtles. Each turtle has their own personality. So you look at it that way, it's kind of like that. You had the straight man, the hothead, and the comedic relief. So you have that perfect balance and synergy between the three, and those three become like the team kind of. They become like the main trio or main four team when you count Nezuko into the mix later on in the other seasons. But those three are the ones you watch out for. You're the ones that want to root for. You know what I mean? And like I said, and of course, Inosuke with his whole like, "Come on, fight me!" So kind of like that kind of mentality. It's like this guy is a demon slayer. He's in the core. How did he make it? So why he's the standout character. Why we love him? It's the contrast. He acts like a feral beast. Screaming pig assault and mispronouncing Tanjiro's name is Kampachiro and Manjiro. Under that mask, he has a surprisingly beautiful feminine face. Watching him slowly learn what friendship is, getting confused by acts of kindness, and getting fluffy feelings around Tanjiro is the most wholesome character arc in the show because it's like Tanjiro is the one that, you know, he's the one that pretty much he's like I said, he's the stray man. He's the one who's able to calm him down. He's the one that's there to bring him down to like, he gets like Inosuke gets too hot headed and he wants to keep fine, but Tanjiro's there to get him like, grounded and say, hey, dude, we're done. That's it. We did our mission. Calm down. That's it. Let's, you know, focus. So that's why in those cases, slowly starts picking up things from Tanjiro itself. And then, I want to hit a spotlight on the creator of this series. Like I said, without the anime, we wouldn't have had the manga. It's time to bow down to the master of this manga, was Koyoharu Kotoge. Fans actually called them Crocodile Sensei. Kotoge is an enigma. They have never revealed their face or gender publicly, maintaining total anonymity. I mean, the style. Kotoge's writing is distinct because of its immense empathy. Even the demons, who are monsters, often get tragic backstories that make you weep for them as they die. It's a rejection of the pure evil villain trope. That's why this makes it stand out because it's like, yeah, the demons are evil, but you gotta understand sometimes it wasn't by choice. It was by desperation. They probably were impoverished. They were sick. It was like that second chance at life. And Kotoge, suggests that demons are just tragic victims of cruel system, mirroring the harshness of life itself. Like I said, it's like they were not born evil. It's the environment that influenced their emotions and their feelings. Why they had to turn to, you know, to the main villain, the main villain to become a demon. And this is a rare instance where the anime is kind of like greater than the manga itself. I read the whole manga series, and like I said, I watched all the seasons up to the recent film, which is a part of a trilogy. Which you gotta wait a few years between the second one and the third one. Kotoge's art is charming. It has a rough woodblock printing aesthetic, but the action scenes can be a bit hard to follow on page. Unfoldable took these rough storyboards and turned them into a fluid, high octane cinema. They also had small anime original scenes that flash out the chemistry in the main trio, making the emotional beats. It's hard. Like I said, this is a time where the studio kind of tries to, like I said, if you watch anime, sometimes they add a little few things because, like I said, if they did a full shot by shot remake, you're gonna feel like the pace is gonna be rushed. Here, they try to add a little bit of like backstory to these characters, try to expand beyond the panels, and try to make the story longer, stretch it out. You want to build that character development. You want to build that dynamic between the main trio, but also the demons. Because, like I said, if you read a manga, it's gonna feel rushed. It's gonna feel they only cover like a certain amount of pages for like a certain character. Here, it kind of like you can stretch as much as this. That's why you have things like filler or animated original moments. Because at the same time as you want to show the studio's creativity. Like I said, they're adapting from work. It's like when you watch like television or film based on a book. If you do like a shot for shot, literal translation of the book, it's gonna feel static. It's not gonna feel, creative. This gives the studio time to go in and say, hey, we're gonna follow this certain pacing, but let's add a little bit to kind of stretch, the pacing of the story. Does that way it doesn't feel rushed. That way we don't have to catch up right away if the work is still going. Unfortunately, with this case, the manga series is already done. It's been completed. So this gives, Studio Photo, well, they had a lot of time. They don't have to rush, to get everything made right away versus other studios like, hey, the manga's still going, then the anime wants to keep going. They want to grab the audience attention. Here, this is one example, like very few examples where the manga's already done. So they'll have like the studio will have plenty of time to stretch out the story, which they don't have to be in a deadline. They don't have to feel rush. So that's why if you notice like things like, One Piece, how it kept going and going, but now they realize, hey, we're getting catch up to the manga. Let's go ahead and now do what our other like studios are doing is follow the seasonal format by 26 episodes, 13 episodes. It's like, that way it gives people the opportunity to catch up on the anime or read the manga. So that way they don't have to feel rushed. That way the quality is better, puts less strain on the actors, and put less strain on the animators and artists that define the work. It gives time to increase and create the creativity. You don't have to feel rush. So now let's get to the great debate. Dub versus sub. To me, this is a toss-up, but I lean slightly towards the sub. Don't get me wrong. Natsuki Hane, who does the voice of Tanjiro, delivers a performance that will break you heart. The strain in his voice when he's fighting, the gentleness when he speaks in Nezuko is unmatched. But like I said, I went back and watched the dub as well. The dub is fantastic. Alex Lee deserves a medal for not destroying his vocal cords, but with Zenitsu screaming. Like, honestly, to me, he was the breakout character, the actor for Zenitsu. Don't get me wrong, the Japanese actor does a good job well, but when it comes to if you want to watch the dub, so like I said, that was to me the dub performance. That was my breakout. Was Alex Lee as Zenitsu. But for this case, I would lean towards the sub. It's because the way it's because of the era that it takes place in. Because the Taisho period is kind of like the early 1900s. So you'll see it when you watch it because it's like they're wearing kimonos. Houses are still made of wood, but you see they have like the telephone wires, the telephone poles, and then when Tanjiro goes to like Tokyo, it's like a minor ass city. You got the trolleys, the wardrobe that people wore at that time, where it was slowly transitioning from the kimonos from the villages towards men are wearing suits, they're wearing hats, women are wearing these modern esque dresses. So you'll see kind of like that period piece, and like I said, the brightful colors that Suifo adds to make like kind of like that wood black look aesthetic. So now the opportunity is, where can you watch this anime? Pretty much the anime itself, it's pretty much everywhere. You can find it on Crunchyroll, Netflix. Netflix has certain seasons available. You can find it on Hulu or Disney Plus, since Hulu is solely integrated Disney Plus. Like I said, you can buy it on Blu-ray. It's available. Also watch the mangas. I also read the manga as well, because I know right now with the recent first film, which is the Infinity Castle, you still have time to read the manga before the other two films come out. And I do recommend, when you get an opportunity, watch all the seasons of Demon Slayer and watch the first film. I believe it's still in theaters, hasn't been out on digital yet. Crunchyroll hasn't announced yet when it's going to be available on digital, but make the opportunity, because the film was really great. I was able to see it in sub when it was in theaters, so it's really good. Like the animation and the music and the fighting, it expands upon in the manga because it's a long arc. The final arc is a long arc. But I like for a fact they were able to expand on. They don't have to feel rushed. Like the studio making it into a film, I think was the wisest choice, because then you can increase the runtime and plus give spotlight to the individual battles. But yeah, so when you have the opportunity, like if you want to watch the anime first, if you're an anime watcher, watch the anime. But if you want to get more in depth into the story, I do recommend reading the manga as well. So is it on the reason why it's on this bucket list? It's, to me, it's like the Star Wars of the generation for the current generation of fans. You need to see it to understand the conversation. It's like a modern storytelling in its best. It's really enjoyable. I believe this is why it was put on this poster, why it deserves to be like on the bucket list. So, like I said, it's really something that, if you enjoy like that early Japanese kind of like that era of Japan, it's something that it's really rare to see, sometimes when you will read manga, it's like early feudal era Japan, but it's kind of rare to see something that's kind of like 1900s, early you know blend of rural Japan with modern kind of aesthetics. So, like I said, check out Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. Like I said, it's available on different streaming platforms. Pick up the manga. So yeah, it deserves to be on that spot in the bucket list. So I hope you enjoy this episode of Anime Bucket Quest. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, and other audio platforms. Like I said, catch up on the backlog, share with your friends. I'm doing this. We're on our way to the journey of 100 anime on this poster. This is barely episode 11. We still got a long ways to go. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Thank you for joining me on this quest. As always, geek on, take care, and watch anime.